generally speaking, the largest portion of your monthly premiums you're paying, your annual premiums, go to cover that type of a risk. The question is, though, as a hailstorm comes through, do you really need to have your roof replaced? Well, what happens when a hailstorm comes through in your neighborhood? Yeah, I'm asking you that. Exactly.
The door knockers appear.
That's exactly right. And so what happens is you just got these people now. Hey, I was just looking at your neighbor's roof, a couple doors down, and boy, they got all this damage. I'd be more than happy to give you a free review. And people don't understand. And again, it gets back to maybe I don't have an agent, and so it's like, oh yeah, look at all this, and they'll get up there and they'll say, oh, you know what? Oh, your roof's really bad. Well, who's going to get on the roof with them to actually see it? More importantly, are you going to even be able to tell? I mean, no
idea.
I can't tell some of these. I mean, I look at them and I go, I don't know, so it's really important, because what you can do is you can call your agent, fill them in on what's going on, and say, what do I do?
Welcome to today's Heart of the Hustle. I am here with Brad Kiesling, who is my favorite insurance person.
Oh, thank you.
We've known each other for a couple years. We've known each other from the Little Elm Chamber of Commerce, and you're super involved in the Little area. And so I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited and look forward to, just having a chat about our favorite subject, insurance.
It is one of those things that no one wants to talk about, but man, we all need it.
That's true. I mean, some people look at it as a unnecessary evil, but it's really a vital part of someone's, financial program. There is a way to protect their assets, protect their family, their cars, their homes, and all that. And so it really is vital. So I like to joke around about it, but I'm very serious about insurance and how that can help people, and particularly from personal experiences, before I got into this field.
So which are the types of insurance that you specialize in?
So I have an insurance agency, the Kiesling Insurance Agency. We're associated with Farmers Insurance, and we're a full-service insurance company. So we focus primarily helping individuals with their home and auto. With toys, I like to call kind of the toys. That's the boat, the RVs, the golf carts, and everything along that line. Also, 2 umbrella policies to provide extra liability coverage, particularly for people who might have pools, might have teen drivers, or have significant assets that they want to protect. But we go beyond that. So we can also help out with business insurance, a wide range of business insurance that we can help people with, as well as life insurance. So we're really a full-service insurance agency here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
And so what areas do you service? Is it mostly Texas? Is it just Dallas area, or is it everywhere?
That's a good question. So right now our office is located up on 380, kind of the Little Elm, Aubrey area. But as a licensed agent in Texas, we can service the whole state of Texas. But the way insurance is set up is we have to be licensed in the states that we do business in. And so for us, we just want to focus on Texas. You got so many people moving in. So, there's plenty of people to help out. So really kind of our focus is the community that we're in, the Little Aubrey area, Frisco, Prosper. We're kind of right on that corner of everything, the whole Dallas-Fort Worth area. But again, we have clients throughout the whole state.
So you mentioned an umbrella policy, and I've heard of those, but I really don't know what it is. So can you explain what that is and why people get them?
You know what? You're not the only one. So, umbrellas can be very important. So basically, when you set up your insurance plan, you're going to have liability to cover your autos in case you get into an accident and you're at fault. Cars are injured. Cars are, damaged. People are injured. It's there to protect you and to provide, financial aid to help them out. Unfortunately, sometimes these accidents get very big, multiple cars, multiple people injured, possibly some people killed. And so an umbrella offers extra liability above and beyond your auto insurance limits as well as your home insurance limits. Again, maybe you have a pool and, unfortunately, someone drowns in the pool. It's there to provide that extra liability. Typically, they start at $1 million and can go up to $10 million. For businesses, it can go even higher. So again, It can be for businesses as well, but it's really there to provide that extra liability above and beyond what you have currently with your home and auto policy. And the great thing is they're not that expensive. So it's for a small amount. Again, that's different for everyone, but for a small amount, that will provide that extra peace of mind that you have, the protection in just in case something happens.
And is that all just for liability or is it for like your stuff? Liability to me means you did something to someone else and now you need to pay for it. Where there's stuff insurance. Do you like how technical I am?
No, that's how I call it. Your stuff,
Hey, right? So then there's the stuff insurance, which is like the
Yeah.
replacement or
So
whatever.
typically it's there for the liability. That's usually where the big part of an accident is, but it can be there for the stuff as well. But typically we see it more on the liability side, for when someone gets hurt. So, but yeah, it can be for both.
We just had another interview with a chiropractor who specializes in car accidents, and he was talking about the personal injury part of your insurance and how, a lot of people don't know that it's there. And so tell us a little bit about that, what you have to think about, particularly for cars, particularly for yourself, even if you are at fault or not at fault, and that personal injury side, because he was saying that that's a huge part of his business is
Yeah.
helping people recover from car accidents.
If you look at your auto policy, there's really three parts to it. I mean, there's protection for yourself and your family. There's protection for the other person in case you're at fault in an accident, and then there's protection for your car. And so those, you can really break it down. It's going to, the different coverage is going to fall in one of those three areas. But, for protection for yourself. So, if you're in an accident and, you're injured and maybe you can't work for 2 or 3 weeks while you're going through treatments, or maybe to help cover deductibles, one of the features that you can add is what's called personal injury protection. And I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. But what that would do is that would help cover some of these doctor's appointments as well as lost wages. Typically, $10 to $20,000, you add on. I mean, every company's just a little bit different, but you do have that available. And the other option is something called medical, and that would help cover, maybe the doctor's visits and things along that line, particularly if you didn't have insurance, but it wouldn't cover lost wages. So there's the difference between the two, but those are a couple options that you could add on to help protect you or your family that's in the car where there might be an accident, and maybe the other driver doesn't have enough insurance or doesn't have any insurance at all. And so you have no way to recover, or it could be a hit and run. And we see that quite a bit. And so having that on your policy, along with underinsured and uninsured, can help protect your family, if the other driver who's at fault doesn't have any coverage, or it's a hit and run, or they just don't have enough.
I think one of the things with car insurance in particular, as you're talking about it, I'm like, I didn't even know these things were something I needed to be thinking about. But I think we don't use agents as much anymore. And so tell us what the dynamic is and why people should have an agent versus just kind of going online and getting like the average, whatever. Because
Yeah.
I'm that person. But every time I talk to you, I'm like,
Yeah,
I don't know if I
yeah.
have that.
Well, and that's a great question. I think a lot of people are so ingrained to buy things online. And, you got Amazon, you got, Walmart, you got all these places you can buy online. Hey, I'll just buy my insurance online as well. Unfortunately, most people don't know what they're getting or how much they should have, let alone what all these little things that you can add on and how it actually impacts or could potentially impact your life, going forward. But, I'm doing it online. It's cheap. You know what, I'm just going to kind of go with it. And they don't really realize the impact unless something happens. Now, I have a lot of people sit there and say, "Oh, I've never had an accident." And hey, that's great. But again, you never know. No one plans to have that accident, so you don't know. Whereas an agent, then, we can kind of go through all the different features, tailor a policy very specific for you, but also, and this is really important, we're here to help you should something happen, whether it's on your auto or your home and you need help. How do I file a claim? Should I file a claim? Where do I go? It's not calling an 800 number. You're calling your agent. You're calling us and saying, what do I do? And that's really the big difference between having an agent and just going online.
And how much is the price difference that significant if you have an agent versus going online? It's
Price,
not
yeah,
about because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
about having the agent that's the
Hmm.
difference. It's about the coverages you have, right?
Well,
That changes the
you're going to have, it really is. It's about the coverages. So, that's really a difficult question to ask or to answer because, yeah, there's going to be some extra cost that the insurance company is going to have, for the agents. I mean, that's of course how we get paid. But again, I liken there's two parts to your insurance policy. There's the upfront cost, and then there's the cost if you have to use it. I hope you never have to use it, but if you do have to use it, having someone there that can hold your hand and walk you through it, and if things aren't working out properly, someone that you can call that knows you intimately, knows your situation, instead of getting another 800 number and explaining it to another rep and then another rep and another rep. So really, the cost, yeah, you might pay a little bit more, but again, you might get better coverages versus just doing it online. And that's the most important thing, is making sure that you do have the coverages, the best coverage you can get that fits within your budget, so that if something were to go wrong, there's going to be help there.
So, one of the things that people use their insurance the most for here in Texas is their homes, especially their roofs. And
Mhm.
that's one place I know where it really helps to have an agent
Yeah,
versus just somebody online. Because, man, I think really need somebody to kind of fight for
yeah.
you in those situations. Tell us a little bit about that.
So you're right. I mean, here, particularly here in North Texas, with the wind and the hail that we get, generally speaking, the largest portion of your monthly premiums you're paying, your annual premiums, go to cover that type of a risk. The question is, though, as a hailstorm comes through, do you really need to have your roof replaced? Well, what happens when a hailstorm comes through in your neighborhood? Yeah, I'm asking you that. Exactly.
The door
You
knockers
got
appear.
that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And so what happens is you just got these people not, hey, I was just looking at your neighbor's roof down, a couple doors down, and boy, they got all this damage. I'd be more than happy to give you a free review. And people don't understand. And again, it gets back to maybe I don't have an agent. And so it's like, oh yeah, look at all this. And they'll get up there and they'll say, oh, you know what? Oh, your roof's really bad. Well, who's going to get on the roof with them to actually see it? More importantly, are you going to even be able to tell? I mean, I
No
can't.
idea.
I can't tell some of these. I mean, I look at them and I go, I don't know, So yeah, it's really important, because what you can do is you can call your agent, fill them in on what's going on, and say, what do I do? And a lot of times, I know with us and most agents work with roofers and contractors that they trust, that they can send out and say, let's have them come look at your roof first. And they might sit there and say, yeah, you're going to need it. No, I wouldn't do it. You got a little damage over here. It might not be enough to file a claim, but, I'll fix it for you for X amount. I mean, we hear all that, but I think that's a big advantage, and that's a great question here in the North Texas area as these, hailstorms come through, is just making sure that you have someone that you can trust, that you can call and say, hey, can you send someone out for us? And so, we have two or three people that we work with, and again, every agent does. So, but that again is just kind of the service that we provide to help our clients.
So, why insurance? How did you get into this?
So, yeah, I spent 30 years in the securities industry, and I was working with financial advisors, and I traveled heavily. So I kind of joke, for about the first 20 years of my career, I lived in airports. About the last 5, 6 years, I lived in my car, and I just burned out, and I was just kind of going through the motions. I always wanted to have my own business, and I was really kind of moving that way. So the last company I was with about 7, 8 years ago, we just kind of parted ways, and I took some time off to look at other opportunities, and just kind of, I love financial services. I love helping people. What I used to do, I dealt with very complicated types of products. And, my job was really to explain them to the financial advisor and how they fit in someone's portfolio, and then ultimately how to explain it to a customer. And this just can't seem to be a natural fit. It's working with people. I love working with people. And again, insurance, it can be complicated because you're, like you said earlier, there's all these different options. What options do I choose? How much should I do? How much should I be here or there? Should I have that umbrella policy? On the commercial side, what types of options do I need? And so, I don't know, I just kind of gravitated toward it. I started looking at a lot of different companies out there, talking to other agents, and then decided on Farmers. I thought that was the best opportunity for me to start a business and to grow it and to have a lot of different options available.
And have you always been here in the North Dallas area?
So I moved down here in 94, so a little over 30 years ago. This is my life in 15 seconds. I was born in Iowa. I moved to Tennessee, to Australia, to Indiana, to Pennsylvania, to Texas, to Pennsylvania, to Iowa, back to Pennsylvania, and now I'm down here in Texas. So my dad, it wasn't military. My dad worked for Alcoa, the aluminum company worldwide, and so as he moved his way up the corporate ladder, I just moved with him as well. So I think I went to 4 or 5 elementary schools. I know I went to 2 middle schools and 2 high schools. As a matter of fact, though, in the middle of my junior year in high school, I moved from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania to Longview, Texas. And I'm going to tell you, as a kid, I'm thinking this is going to be a culture shock. And it's funny, I tell people, I honestly thought, and this was back in the mid 80s, I honestly thought kids would be riding horses to school and have their cowboy hat. I mean, that's just what I thought. And what I came to find out is they are no different than my friends back up in Pittsburgh. And so I was only here for a year and a half. Graduated. My dad was moved back to Pittsburgh, so that was one of those moves. I went out to the University of Iowa. Didn't want to live in the upper Midwest after I graduated college. Ended up back in Pittsburgh and had an opportunity to move down here into sales again with the company I was with at the time, and I jumped on it because I loved that year and a half I spent in East Texas. Yeah. That's how I got here.
People say I wasn't born in Texas, but I got here as soon as I could.
That's right. That's right. Now I have 3 Texas kids, so I'm not allowed to leave. So I'm pretty much stuck here.
So you are the quintessential girl dad.
Yes, that's what you keep telling me. So, I got 2 beautiful daughters. They're both at the University of Oklahoma right now. Corinne is getting ready to graduate. She was on the Palm Squad all 4 years up there. So had a blast getting together up there at football games and everything that she did and just watching her grow along that line. And so she's graduating here in May, moving back here to the Dallas-Fort Worth area and is actively looking. So if anyone's listening to this, she has a degree in public relations and digital marketing. So she's looking for a job. And then I have Claire. She's my sophomore, and she's just having a great time up there. And, she's my smart one. So Corinne's my sarcastic one, kind of follows like me, and Claire's the smart one. She's got a 4 up there, and she's going to go into accounting. She can graduate in 3 years, so she's going to stay the 4th year and get a master's in accounting. And she already has the summer before her senior year, she already has a internship lined up with one of the big 4 accounting firms. And so she's all excited about that. So, and then I have Colin. So, but those are the girls. And then I have Colin. So he's 25 and starting his career out at HEB and really enjoying that as well. So as HEB's moved into our market. So, but yeah, with the girls, it's been challenging, but fun. So,
As a boy mom, I totally get that.
Yeah. So it's, they grew up in dance the whole time, and I've been doing enough dance competitions to say I'm kind of done with that right now. So, but it was fun, and it's just really neat to see all 3 of them as they grow and learn and starting to get out into what I tell them the real world, not the bubble of North Dallas or the Dallas suburbs and all that. And so it's just great. Watching all 3 of them grow. So,
What do you think raising 3 kids has taught you about running a business?
it's like herding cats, I guess, if you think about it. I mean, running all over the place, things change constantly at home with the kids and growing up, having to go all over the place. And I think the same's with business, we got clients all over the place. Things happen where I got to run out the last minute because something happened to a client's home and be there for them to help them out. I got my team members, and just being there for them. And as they're talking to people, it's kind of, what should I do here? What should I do here? And we're all sharing ideas and everything along that line. But it's, I guess maybe with the kids, it's just so hectic, and nothing's the same, every day. And, it's kind of the same with business. So, we started right before COVID, about 5, 6 months before COVID, and, having to deal with all that. I joke it's the greatest time to start a business, right before COVID. But, so you look at those changes and, inflation and everything that's going on and how that's impacting reconstruction cost on homes and autos and everything along that line. You just learn to adapt and move forward and not sweat the small stuff.
One of the things we've seen, and you kind of alluded to it, is like prices keep going up in
Mm-hmm.
everything,
Mm-hmm.
but it seems like insurance, especially. Tell us why. What's going on with the rates for insurance? I don't know if it's across the board, but I know everybody's car insurance has gone up, everybody's home insurance has gone up. Help us understand some of the factors that lead to that.
That's a phenomenal question because really we can go back to COVID. And what ended up happening is, during that roughly year and a half period, people were all at home, they were working at home, they weren't driving as much. And one of the things, and this is my 2 cents too on this, but one of the things is the insurance company started offering rebates to their customers, primarily the auto customers. And what that ended up doing is kind of potentially lowering the reserves that we had in case emergencies, came up or other storms, things along that line. And then as we started coming out of COVID, part of it is people forgot how to drive. And we really saw the accidents really starting to increase on the auto insurance. And again, as inflation really started impacting other industries coming out of COVID, it didn't impact us as much, but then it ramped up really fast over the last 2, maybe 3 years. And a lot of that is really the cost of these autos. I mean, let's just talk about car insurance. What does it cost to fix a small fender bender? And those costs started increasing, one, because we had to ship the stuff, the parts from overseas. And again, that got held up in the ports. So you had all that. But also, too, the cost of labor really went up. And just to give you an example, if you crack your windshield in your car, you're going to need to go get that replaced. Well, a lot of these cars have all these sensors in the windshields now. And what ends up happening is the companies that fix the windshields have to have a specialized person, or they might have a couple people, if they can find them, that are specialized in resetting those sensors. Well, again, as we were coming out of everything, they didn't have what the people they needed. And in which case, what happens? Well, I got to pay you more in order for you to come to me versus my competitor. And in which case, that just increases the overall cost. And we're still seeing this in the auto industry. But also, too, as these cars, I was just talking about the windshield. Think about all the sensors around your cars now. And, you get in just a little fender bender, before COVID, 5, 10 years ago, that might cost a few $100 to where maybe it's like, look, take it to a shop, I'll pay it. I'm not going to file a claim. But what ended up happening now is instead of a few $100, it's $5,000 to $10,000. And people don't realize, and we hear this all the time, I barely touched that person. That's what it is. So that's a big impact on it. The other big impact now is lawsuits. And I was talking to one of our underwriters. This was maybe 2.5 years ago as we're coming out of COVID. And they said, what we're starting to notice is instead of someone gets in an accident, instead of them calling their agent, they're calling an attorney. And what's happening is these lawsuits are getting bigger and bigger, and the insurance companies have to absorb this. And so the basis of insurance is just kind of spreading the risk amongst all the policyholders. And so even people who haven't had accidents, I've never had an accident, and that's great. That's one way one of the biggest ways you can control your insurance premiums. But it's we've still seen that increase because we have to account for all the other yahoos on the road, that are, creating, chaos. And, plus the uninsured drivers out there now, particularly here in Texas. I mean, you have, I've seen these statistics, but it's somewhere between around 25%, give or take, of people who don't have insurance. I think it's somewhere a little bit north of 30% of people that they feel don't have insurance or are underinsured for what they should have, and unfortunately that impacts us all. So I can go into the homes too, kind of same thing, labor going up and, the cost of the items going, the cost to fix your homes going up and, that's having a huge impact. And the companies now are also getting very, what's the word? Very sophisticated when it comes to modeling where are the risks. So for example, here in the North Texas area, again, our biggest risk is hail and the storms. Of course, then we have the big, every other year or so, it seems like we have a huge ice storm and that creates chaos. You go down to the Houston area along the coast, they got the hurricanes. You get into central Texas, kind of Austin and around that area, they have the hail. But then you start getting out west, they have the wildfires. And all that is actually coming closer and closer to us as the DFW area spreads out. And so, these risks are becoming more and more apparent. I think Texas is number one in hail, and I think tornadoes. Hurricanes, they're up there, and actually wildfires now, I think we're number two, maybe number three, but I think we're the number two state with the most wildfires behind California. So, all that's going to impact you. I've never, again, I haven't had to file any claims, but that still comes into effect because we all pay the price.
Interesting. Thank you for explaining all of that.
Hope I didn't go too deep or anything. So
It was great. It was great. I think, we just don't understand what goes into those prices. And I think that's one of the reasons, again, why it's good to have someone you could just sit down and be like, I don't understand why this costs so much. And I don't understand, just because we just don't know unless.
And that's important because also too, so you set up your program and then you get the renewals and why is it going up? Having someone there instead of saying, okay, great, now I'm going to go shop around somewhere else. And that could create problems too, because we've seen this. People will sit there and say, oh, I'm going to shop around and, oh, my policy is renewing, say, on the first of the month. And I'm just going to let it go and maybe wait a couple days and I'll get something. And the fact that you had what's called a lapse in your policy, even for one day, whether it's your auto or home, that could have a very dire effect, not only on pricing, but on whether or not a company will actually take you. So just another thing to keep in mind. But a lot of people, oh, I'll get to it, and then you get sidetracked and all that. And then, lo and behold, you don't get to it and that could have consequences. So like I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff out there. But again, that's where we're here to help people out and just kind of get an understanding and, kind of as you're going forward, how that can impact your family and protect your family over time.
One of the things I admire the most about you as a fellow business owner in our area is how just visible you are within the community, right? You're super active in so many things. So tell us some of the things that you do to be part of your community, to
Sure.
meet new people, meet prospective clients, just because I think you're a good example for other business owners.
Thank you. So, the two biggest things that I'm really focusing on right now is one, the Little Elm Chamber of Commerce. So, I've been a member, I don't know, maybe coming right out of COVID, so 4 or 5 years now, and just love working with the community. I just think what the city of Little Elm is doing and what they've been doing to just promote the small businesses in there, the interaction that the chamber has with the Economic Development Corporation and everything along that line and all the members. We're about 250 some odd strong right now. And the big thing there is it's not like we have big corporations. We got a couple big ones, but it's really a lot of just, small businesses out there and we're all supporting each other. I was blessed to have an opportunity a few years ago to help them start up their ambassador program. And then for the last couple of years, I've been on the board of directors. So really enjoy doing that, really enjoy the meetings, the functions they have, going out to ribbon cuttings and meeting the new businesses and just being there to help them out. Love doing all that stuff. And actually, the great thing, too, is the Little Elm Chamber now, I think in the most recent list of chambers in the DFW area, is now listed as the 14th best chamber. So that's fantastic for what the chamber has done there. So that's one of my big passions. And that also helps out on the networking. It's really a good networking source. The other big thing I'm working on is Little Elm Rotary, and that's really more for service, the motto, service above self. And so, we're a smaller club. We're about 40 members right now, but we're actually the fastest growing club in our region, which kind of goes from Abilene through Fort Worth. we're the furthest east and up to Wichita Falls. So, we were recognized yesterday on a conference call as the fastest growing club in the district. So that's great. But really, what Rotary is, it's the world's largest service club. We can do international projects such as water wells and building different things, or helping out at schools, things along that line around the world. But really, what we're focusing on is just kind of the Little Elm area and the surrounding areas, just to try to help people, whether they need help. Well, one project we did is a person had a old tree that they needed taken out, an older couple, and so we helped pay for that, and partnered with CWD to remove it and all that. And so little things like that, but also just kind of cleaning up parks. We do a blood drive, and one of our other big things is the St. Arbor Community Garden. We spend a lot of time out there and helping out so we can bring fresh food to the community for people who don't have access to it. So those are a couple big things that I really focus on and really enjoy. I got the networking side, and then I got the service side, and just really love it. And I'm very honored because I have the opportunity starting in July to become the president of the Rotary Club for the next year. So, I know. So, so very honored to be able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, thank
so,
you for
yeah.
humbling yourself to be here on Heart of the Hustle. I'm honored.
Yeah, no, don't think of it that.
So, as we're wrapping up, tell us what some of the myths are that people have about insurance that you'd like for to dispel.
Myths about insurance. So I'm going to share one that we really haven't talked about, and that's life insurance. A lot of people say, I don't need life insurance. I'm healthy. Maybe they don't want to face their own mortality. A lot of people, we find out, just don't know where to go get it. But having life insurance is a vital part of not just your insurance program, but your all financial savings and everything along that line, but really there to protect your family, because your biggest asset really is your income. People think their house, oh, my 401k, look, well, not right now, but look what my 401k is doing. But really your biggest asset is your income stream. And unfortunately, if you have a family and maybe one person's working, or maybe they're both working, but one's making a lot more, you lose that income stream. We need to help out and help you replace that. So I think one big myth would be people just like, well, I don't really need it. It's too expensive. And you would be surprised. I mean, there's a variety of different type of life insurance type products and programs that we can fit within your budget. But even if you just have a little bit to start out now and can grow it later when you're more financially stable, just having that, because again, I don't want to face my mortality, or more importantly, I get sick and I can't qualify, and I should have done this last year or 2 years ago. So I think that's a really big one. Probably another one, and I don't know if we want to wrap on this one, but I think a big one is, I never get in an accident. I never get in an accident. I never filed a claim on my auto or on my home. Why do I have to pay all these? And I know we talked about a lot of the reasons why, insurance is going up and where the costs are right now. And it's impacting even me as an agent. I mean, I'm paying the same thing out there. So, but you know what? You can't look at it that way. You got to look at it to say, listen, I need to make sure I got protection, for my family, for myself, for my, financial resources, for my business. And yes, it might cost a little bit more, but you know what? Maybe instead of going to Starbucks a couple times a week, you know what? I'm going to use that to get the proper coverage I need. And more importantly, cheap insurance is not always good insurance. And I always like to kind of get people thinking along this line. If you got into a car accident and, the costs are going to be the same, if people are hurt, the cost of these autos that are now, $40, $50, $60, $80, $100,000 to replace, that's going to be the same no matter what insurance company you're with. And we're all facing the same headwinds and the same issues with regards to pricing. So what's going to happen if you get into an accident and you got Company A and Company B? Company A was a lot cheaper than Company B, but they're going to pay the exact same price, or there's going to be the exact same, claims cost to settle that claim. You know what? maybe over here they might, try to figure out ways to get out of things, or, maybe not want to pay as much. Maybe they don't want to pay as much for your car. I've seen all that happen before, and we've helped our clients through those issues. Maybe they don't want to fix your roof. I'll fix a patch over here, but we're not going to replace the whole thing. So, I mean, people don't understand that until they have to use it. And then in which case they're like, oh my God, what's going on here, and they think, oh, insurance is a ripoff, and it's really not. That's, where we can help you out, where agents can help you out. So I think that's another big, I guess, myth or fallacy that, cheap insurance is good insurance, and, just making sure you got the proper coverages.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad, yeah, I'm glad we finally got this set up. I know we've been talking about it for a while.
I know. I'm so glad you're here. And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
So again, we're up on 380, and we're right in front of Savannah, the neighborhood Savannah. So that's probably, you got all that construction up there.
Yeah,
So,
no one wants to drive 380. No
yeah,
offense
so,
to the Texas Department of Public Works or whoever does any of that, but please fix 380 for anyone who lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They know. So maybe a website or a phone, because no one wants to drive 380.
so probably the best thing to do, and again, most business we do is over the phone, so we can do that. Just give us a call. So our number is 469-447-5500. And whether I pick it up or my agents or my service manager, any of us will be more than happy to help you answer any questions you have. Do a free review of your current policy. Maybe we can, and there's been times we say, hey, you got a good one here. You might want to stay where you're at right now. Other times we can point out, maybe some gaps in coverage so that, we can kind of make sure that you understand, what you have and maybe what we can do to help you out.
Excellent.
All right.
Thanks again for being here.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.